Hi, my name is Lacey, and I'd like to tell you about the time when I was literally the only girl in the town I lived in. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, and believe me, the second I realized what was going on, I completely freaked out. But first, let me tell you a bit about my life so you can understand how this strange turn of events came to happen. When I was a little girl, I had a pretty normal childhood. My mom and dad were amazing, and they spent a lot of time with me. They were loving and sweet, and dad was like a superhero to me. He always came to my rescue when I was in trouble, and he told the best bedtime stories in the entire world. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, but I was okay with that. I liked mom and dad always pampering me instead of having to share their attention with siblings. That was until my dad passed away. Then I really did wish I had someone else other than my mom. I'm not saying this because my mom suddenly became mean or anything of the sort. Oh no, nothing like that. Mom was amazing. She worked so hard to provide for me and raised me the best she could. The problem was, Mom had to take on a new job when Daddy went away to heaven. She was a doctor, and though she made a good living, she spent too many hours outside the house. Dad was the one who stayed home and looked after me since he could work from home. So after he passed away, Mom had to adapt. She got herself a job making house calls for a big company. The good part was that she made a really good living, and she could afford to buy me nice things and spend lots of time with her only daughter. The bad part, well, we had to move constantly because she was sent wherever she was the most useful. We moved about twice every single year. It was really insane, but at least the company paid for everything: the truck, the packers, the houses. They even gave her a big bonus every single time they sent her to a new location. It was a bit of a struggle, though, since I never got to stay in a single place long enough to make any real friends. That's why now I wish I had a brother or sister. Then at least I'd have someone other than my mom who I didn't have to say goodbye to whenever we packed up and moved all over again. As you might guess, it's a struggle to give everything up every 6 or 7 months. I think we never stayed anywhere for longer than 10 months tops. It was insane since I kept having to adapt to a new school only to pack up again when I was beginning to make new friends. And so I wasn't really shocked, but rather annoyed when my mom walked into my room and announced that we were moving again in a week's time. I rolled my eyes and gave her a frustrated look. She explained that it was the best for us and that her company had offered her an amazing bonus to take on this new location. They didn't explain why the extra pay was so big, but it was juicy enough not to ask many questions. We would soon discover that she really should have inquired more about it because soon we'd find ourselves in a big mess. So, as usual, we began putting all our belongings in boxes. I was so good at it because of all the experience, so it took me just an hour or two. I texted all my friends over the following few days, and they had a big farewell party for me. I was really used to all those parties, and I didn't really enjoy them as much any longer. I wondered if I'd remain friends with any of them after a few months, and I knew that most likely the answer to that question was a big no. I mean, of all the people I've met over the years, I think I've only really stayed in touch with 4 or 5. If you consider that I've been moving around at least twice a year since I was 8, then you can only imagine how many people I have left behind. When we arrived at the new town we'd be spending a few months in, I was shocked. It was so small, like ridiculously small. We later discovered that the entire population consisted of less than 1,000 people. I'm not even kidding you, it's absolutely insane. Now, the thing is, all the people who lived there were super wealthy. That's why my mom was sent there. There were not enough people to merit a good hospital to be built, but these wealthy people wanted to have an on call doctor. The company my mom worked for would send someone to live there for a few months before replacing the doctor with a new one when they got too irritated with the small town life. This alone was curious, yes, but there's another big detail that I haven't told you about yet. Remember how I told you that I was the only girl in my town at one point? Well, this was the village I was speaking about. This place had been founded by men who wanted to get away from the women in their lives. Some were guys who liked other guys, and some simply wanted to spend time in a little piece of heaven without so many gals around. Mom was allowed there since they needed a doctor urgently, and she was the only one available to spend a few months there 24/7. That meant that I was going to an all-boys school and basically live around nothing but men during at least 3 or 4 months. Mom was so angry, and she told her employers that they should have warned her about it. They apologized and offered her an even bigger bonus for her to stay at least 12 weeks. She considered quitting, but the money was really good, and after that period of time was over, they promised they'd give her a really nice home in a big city and allow her to work there for over an entire year. That was a really good deal, and so Mom ended up reluctantly agreeing. I wasn't happy about it at all, and it felt so wrong that I should be the only underage girl in that town. Now, Mom and I really caught the guy's attention. How could we not when we were literally the only teenage girl and adult woman in the whole town? The men over there dealt with a lot of stress of not having women around. Sure, they liked it in general, but it was still somewhat of a struggle from time to time. School was super awkward for me. You can't even imagine the looks I got from guys. I mean, all the students were so shocked that I was there to begin with. They rarely, if ever, saw a girl at all, except for when they traveled outside of the town. And for many kids at school, that was rarely ever. In my previous high schools, I wasn't the prettiest girl in my class, and guys rarely flirted with me. In this place, though, I was the hottest girl there. Well, that's just because I was the only girl there. But that's beside the point. The thing was, everyone wanted to date me since I was basically the only option. And teenage boys get really desperate to be with a girl when they only see one while traveling far from home. You bet my mom also struggled with her situation so much. Sure, many of the adult men were not into women at all, but others sure fancied her a lot. They liked having this place to stay away from women in general, but having a single one to date and have fun with seemed almost ideal. And my mom was not into being treated like a piece of meat in the marketplace. She rejected guys left and right, and I began doing the same. It was really uncomfortable having to say no over and over again, and some guys refused to understand that I wasn't interested. Some didn't even care, I think, and kept trying and trying. I've been kissed by force more than once, and it wasn't nice at all. I told my mom about it, and we spoke to the police officer in town, but he didn't really do much about it. It was just something that was just kind of expected to happen, you know? I wasn't happy about that at all, and I got so mad. Every time a guy came too close to me after that, I would get angry at them and step away. Going anywhere became a struggle. Every single time I went shopping at the market, I got stared at constantly, even by guys way older than I was. Remember that back then, I was only 17 years old. So yeah, having a creepy 50-year-old man staring at me wasn't funny or cute at all. It freaked me out so much. I was even kidnapped by a guy who became obsessed with me. He kept asking me out again and again. He wasn't a student at school, but he was almost my age, just 2 years my senior. He was the son of this super wealthy guy, and he believed that he was entitled to take anything he wanted to, no questions asked. Of course, I didn't accept it at all and freaked out when he dragged me into his car. He took me to his house and tried to get me to kiss him, but I flat out refused. He ended up letting me leave, and I called my mom immediately. This time around, the police officer did listen to our story and got worried. He went to speak with the guy and his father, and they agreed to move away in order to keep us from pressing charges. Since he hadn't harmed me and he claimed he was just trying to have a good time, I decided it was best if he just went far away and never bothered me again. Believe me, from that moment on, I became far more careful whenever I walked out the door. Eventually, I became good friends with one of the students in my class. His name was Richie, and he was so sweet. He never disrespected me or stared like I was a weird creature invading his town. That was such a relief, and after a while, we decided to start dating. This caused something of an issue at school since that meant I was unavailable. Being the only girl in town meant that there were no other possible gals for them to date. I didn't care about what they thought, though, and kept going on with Richie. Eventually, though, the company my mom worked for told her they were ready to give her the new position they had promised. It had been 4 months since we arrived. Now at least we'd be spending an entire year in a big city. The house they rented for us there was incredible, so there was a silver lining to everything. I was really looking forward to being around girls again. You can't even imagine. I was really sad, though, to have to leave Richie behind. He couldn't move away, though, and so we had one last date and shared our last kiss just before I got in the car. My mom drove away, and I felt really sad, but super relieved as well. Mom managed to get a new job in the city, and we stopped having to move around so often. That was a really nice change of pace. Still, I'll never forget the months during which I was the only teenage girl in an entire town. Thanks for watching. What is the craziest place you ever moved into? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and check out other videos on the channel.